voter engagement and how we can also, make sure that there's not, voter suppression and voter intimidation that are happening at the polls in these last critical days and hours. I have Mandana Dayani. I'm sorry, I didn't ask you how to pronounce your last name. I did.
That was actually perfect. Thank you.
Just occurred to me. I dropped the ball on that. Who is a founder of IamAvoter.com, and Kristen Clarke, who works with 866ourvoter.org, and also, oh wait, you just told me. Yeah, protectthevote.net as well. So I would love to start with you, Kristen, and talking just a little bit, if you could, let folks know what protectthevote.net is all about and how you came to these organizations.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me. So it's exciting to be here. 93 million people have already voted, which is about 2/3 of the number of people who voted in 2016.
That is unbelievable. Wow, that's so
unbelievable. And so in this final 48 hours, we are working around the clock to make sure that everyone else in the country who hasn't voted is armed with all the information that they need to be able to participate in this historic election. So I lead an organization called the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. And one of the most important programs that we run is called Election Protection. It's the nation's largest and longest running nonpartisan voter protection program. And it's anchored by a hotline, 866-OUR-VOTE, 866-OUR-VOTE. So plug that into your phone right now, share it with your networks. We have legal volunteers who are available nonstop to help people figure out what are the voting options in their state. Can I vote by mail? And, if so, what are the deadlines? And we're discouraging people from putting ballots in the mailbox at this point. Can I go out and early vote? And what are the times still available for early voting? In my state at this point, we'd be just talking about Monday. And if I'm planning to go out and vote in person on Tuesday, what do I need? Where do I go? What times will the polls be open? Lots of polling sites have closed because of the pandemic. So we really make sure that we're, arming and empowering people with all the information that they need to be able to vote. And we do this work in support of voters in every corner of the country. And, we're troubleshooting and helping people resolve problems that they have. One big problem that some people call us with is, I requested my absentee ballot weeks ago. What do I do at this stage? Do I wait, hold my breath and wait? Or is there something else I can do? And so we're helping people just navigate the laws that apply in their state so that they're able to successfully vote and have their voice heard.
So if people go to 866ourvote.org, they will be able to see information on their state with the particular questions that they have, right?
Yeah, you can click on a map and learn about some of the rules in your state. You can text 866-OUR-VOTE. You can communicate with someone live on the 866ourvote.org website, but we also like for people to call us at 866-687-8683, because sometimes texting and going quickly back and forth isn't quite sufficient to make sure people get all of their questions answered. So 866-687-8683. And if you're set already, if you're one of the 93 million people who already voted, share that number with other people in your network so that they can put in place a plan to vote now. It's kind of remarkable. Often we have ourselves and our own game plan set, but may have a lot of friends and family members in our network who haven't yet given thought to, how they're going to vote.
So there are a couple of last minute court rulings that are affecting a couple of critical swing states right now, Minnesota and Wisconsin. There's a lot of stuff going on in Pennsylvania. I'm particularly concerned about Minnesota, where as my understanding is the ballots say return by election or postmarked by election day, but a judge just ruled that if they're not received by election day, they won't be counted. Anything you want to message voters in those states that are having these frankly confusing and contradictory instructions coming their way?
Yeah, voting should be a lot easier than it is, but it is a little bit more, it's a little complicated because every state structures its rules in the way that they want. And then there are lots of lawsuits that are changing things. We've been trying to open up access, but some of the rulings have been narrowing access. The main thing we're telling people is if you're voting by mail because of the pandemic and you cannot vote in person, don't drop that ballot in the mailbox at this stage. If you
mean in the drop box, just to be clear.
Don't give it to the U.S. Postal Service.
Right.
Go to a drop box, get it to your local elections office, go early when you won't encounter people. In some states, you can give the ballot to a friend or family member who can drop it off for you. But I think it's hard at this point to encourage people in some states to gamble on the U.S. Postal Service.
The only situation in which somebody would be putting it in the mail at this point is if they have no other options, if they're abroad or, I mean, don't not mail in your ballot if that's the only option open to you, but
right.
But if there's anything else you can do to get it into a drop box or vote in person at this stage of the game, do that.
Exactly. And Minnesota is, a bad situation, but I do want to say that there are probably about 24 or so states that say, as long as it's postmarked by election day, it is okay in our state. So it's a mixed bag, and it's why we have this hotline to make sure people know the rules that apply in their state. We are a source of trusted and accurate information about, what the rules are in your particular state.
Thank you, Kristen. Mandana, I want to ask you about IamAvoter.com and how you came to, what is your driving mission?
Well, first, can I just say that like my favorite thing in the world to do is to encourage people to go to 866 our vote. So talking to Kristen is like the biggest celebrity in the entire world. I love you guys.
Have you two met before, or is this?
No, you just like fulfilled all my nerd dreams. So this is, you have no idea how exciting this is for me. So thank you so much for the work that you guys do, Kristen. It's so, so important. And we treasure everything you guys do. So I am a voter, I guess quickly. So I came to this country as a religious refugee around the age of 6 and like was raised to be very patriotic. I think it's like very dissimilar to the rhetoric that you may see. I find immigrants to be some of the most patriotic people in America because like we're so grateful to be here and we know how horrible our lives could have been had we not come here. And so about 2.5 years ago, I was just watching the news and seeing how divided our country felt, and I couldn't reconcile that with the America that I felt like I knew when I was growing up. I worked as an attorney, I worked in fashion and media and tech, and as a talent, I've had all these different careers. And so I felt like I wanted to give back and see how I could kind of help unite our country. And I kept taking all these meetings. And every time I had a meeting, someone said, if you want to change America, we need more voter participation. And I was like, who's not voting? Again, as an immigrant, you just think everyone votes because it's such a privilege. And then I saw the turnout numbers for 2016, and you see 100 million eligible voters didn't vote. And that made my brain explode. And so the idea really came about how can we advocate for civic participation? How can we make this exciting for this generation? How do we give people nonpartisan information so that they can feel informed about their options and their choice and really want to participate in our democratic process? And so me and 25 other women came together to build this campaign. It's completely nonpartisan. We all do this as volunteers. I do this full-time as a volunteer. But the campaign's mission has really always just been to kind of change the culture around voting, to really provide people with the tools and the information and the facts they need so they can make informed decisions, and just to encourage more participation, try to help us have a more representative electorate. And so we launched about a little over 2 years ago. And we have a ton of partnerships that we've done across the board in entertainment and media and fashion and tech. We do a lot with content. We've really just tried to make civic engagement something really, really cool that people are excited to participate in. We primarily, I would say, target young voters, but we do try to speak to everybody.
How have young voters been turning out this election?
From what we're seeing, it's insane. I mean, when you think about young voters, so this is going to be the most diverse generation America has ever had. And this generation is going to be larger than the baby boomers. So if this generation votes on the issues that they care about, we would have such a different country. And so what we've tried to do is kind of remove some of the barriers. Like when we, at the beginning, looked a lot at the reasons that we heard from young voters about why they weren't participating. And it was just, we don't think our vote matters, but it was also, we don't know where to vote. We don't know when to vote. We don't know how to vote. It was all of these conversations, which, by the way, makes sense when we don't teach civics in America. Like, it's not a mandate across the country for our people to know how the government works. So what we really wanted to do was kind of invest in our technology. So when you text the word voter to 26797, you can confirm your registration and register. You can receive a reminder for every local, state, and federal election, find out your polling location, if you can vote by mail or request your mail-in ballot. Everything anybody would need in order to vote will be delivered through our text platform. So for us, that became like a very easy way to connect to young voters on a regular basis. And then using our partnerships with like the NBA or H&M to kind of help distribute the information and the text platform so we could get more and more people informed.
Kristen, are you seeing the same thing? Are you seeing, you're seeing this big uptick in young voters too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it all is said and done, we're going to see a lot of records shattered. But some of the data that I've seen definitely suggests we've already shattered some 2016 records when it comes to youth participation, which is great. And you know, the ink is not yet dry, which is what's really exciting. You know, we have an opportunity over the next 48 hours to just keep those numbers climbing and going.
I mean, we only had 31% participation from young voters in the last election. So there's so much room to expand.
Was that 2016 or 2018?
2016.
Uh-huh.
Although you just confused me.
Wow.
Let me just triple check.
But I'm not fact checking.
2018, yes.
Okay. It's remarkable to think that pollsters, you know, when they are polling likely voters, usually are excluding young voters because young people don't vote. And I get thrilled by the prospect of having young voters suddenly turn out in droves and upend that stereotype. And it does feel like, to me, it feels like young people are engaged for the first time in my lifetime in the electoral process. And I could not be more excited about that fact.
Can I mention one thing?
Yeah.
So a lot of people may be thinking, well, I missed the registration deadline, but there are about 21 states where you can register to vote on election day, same day registration. So for a lot of folks, you're not out of luck. You know, even if you haven't thought about voting, and today at this moment, you're like, hey, you know what, I want to do it. You may still have the opportunity to register and vote on election day. 21 states.
Yep. I was just talking to Senator Jeanne Shaheen in New Hampshire earlier today, and New Hampshire is one of those states where you can register quickly, easily on election day. And furthermore, there are so many things you can do, even if you've already voted. You can get your friends and your family out to vote. You can start phone banking. You can engage your immediate community and make sure that other people are voting.
Phone banking is so easy. I mean, I do it while I watch TV. I do it like while I'm making lunch for my kids. It's just such an easy way to activate people this late in the election cycle. Obviously, like also once you voted, to your point, we always just recommend that you text 3 or 5 of your friends and family members and check in on them. Like I
Yeah.
just casually drop into all my Slack groups and just like, has everyone voted? Does anyone need help? Does anyone have questions? I think
Peer
sometimes
pressure
people
and
need like a
peer
nudge.
pressure and guilt tripping really work well when it
Oh my
comes.
God, as a Jewish mother, let me tell you, nothing works better than guilt. So do it. It's amazing.
Can we turn toward the dark side for a second and talk about voter suppression? And I think that that's a little bit, it's one of the saddest facets of American democracy as it manifests right now, is that a part of the strategy of some political groups is to try to keep people from voting. How worried should people be about intimidation at the polls and that sort of thing? And what resources do people have to turn to if they see stuff that is untoward on election day? I think it's probably, stuff's not going to happen before election day, but if anything does crop up, what should folks do?
So we encourage people, 1, do not engage. 2, report the intimidating activity to election officials immediately on the site. So if you're in line, step out of the line and go inside and report it to election officials immediately. 3, you can report it to the 866 Our Vote hotline. Sadly, we have been getting complaints about groups lurking outside of polling sites, and there are rules in particular states that establish zones where people are not allowed to engage in electioneering or any activity that would be intimidating to voters. And then 4, if it's on the high end of the Richter scale and you feel threatened, only then would I urge calling 911, but that would be the 4-step process that I would encourage people to follow. Sadly, we're hearing about militia groups, but here's the thing. These small militia groups are finding themselves overwhelmed by the hundreds of people that are turning out. And we want to make sure that people are not discouraged by some of these, stories that are popping up here and there. We want to make sure that everyone feels encouraged and excited about voting and not talk too much about these pockets of incidents popping up.
Yeah, I think that there's a sensationalism going on. Like, of course, it's newsworthy and exciting that somebody might be actually, threatening somebody at the polls. But these are really isolated instances, and it's unlikely that that's going to be anything to worry about. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't have brought it up because I'm doing exactly what you're talking about.
No, it's important though.
I think it's something that people are thinking about, and I think that it might even be just helpful to sort of dispel that as a legitimate threat. For the most part, it's not going to be a big feature of Tuesday.
No, I'm actually happy you brought it up because I do think it's important to know how to handle it, and it's important to know how to address this topic because it comes up all the time. So I do think it's important to know how to handle it. And then more importantly, just to know that it's really not as pervasive as far as the intimidation. I think when you look at the gerrymandering and some of those other issues, that's a whole other conversation. But I think for the most part, it is safe and everyone should vote.
Yes, everyone should vote. Yes. So I'm going to ask one more question and then I think we need to wrap things up. But my question is, looking forward past this election, what can we as a country do to increase voter participation in future elections? And that's for both of you.
I think that the pandemic has exposed how fractured our election system is. It really doesn't make sense that if you're voting in Texas, it is incredibly hard to vote. Not every voter gets access to vote by mail in Texas and in Tennessee and a handful of other states. Whereas in other states like California, they make it so easy. You don't even have to apply. If you're an active registered voter, they just mail the ballot to you. Same thing in DC. I didn't have to apply. They just mailed the ballot to me for the general election. We shouldn't stand for a system where it's just so dramatically different, depending on the state that you live in. So I think 2021 would be a great moment for all of us to collectively champion for a system where the rules are more uniform across the board, where everybody has access to same-day voter registration. expanded early voting opportunities, lots of in-person voting opportunities on election day so that we don't see these miserably long lines. And for those who appreciated and valued the work that John Lewis did, fighting for the Voting Rights Act and fighting to make sure that all Americans could vote, let's do this work under, his legacy, or with the goal of carrying forth his legacy. But we've got work to do for sure to make it just easier for people to vote. And I know that there are a lot of people from around the globe watching. And when you compare the US to other modern democracies across the globe, we're often dead last in voter participation and turnout because we make it so hard.
Yeah, I think I saw that we're ranked 26th of 32 developed countries in voter participation.
That's so depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also depressing to think that the legacy of voter suppression draws, it traces its roots to post-Civil War, when in the American South we were trying to suppress the Black vote, it's got an insidious roots. Well, I thank you both for your time and for your fearless work in this field. It's so important. And thank you for being such a great resource to so many people. We're really grateful for you and all of your efforts. And we're going to be posting links and information for those of you who are watching of how you can draw on these resources. But thank you, Kristen and Mandana, for your time. And
thanks for all you do. This is
awesome.
You've used your platform in the most incredible way, and we're just so grateful for you and everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. All right. Take care. Bye. Go vote, everyone.
Yes.
Go vote.